The ship came down from the sky on a Tuesday morning. It was not like the ships humans built. It was smooth and silver, shaped like a teardrop, and it made no sound as it landed in the middle of Geneva. People stopped walking. Cars stopped moving. The whole city held its breath. For 300 years, humans had wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer. The door of the ship opened, and three beings walked out. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes that were too large for their faces. They wore robes of deep purple, and they moved like they owned the ground beneath their feet. The one in front spoke. His voice was strange, like metal scraping against stone. "We are the Galactic Council. Take us to your leader." Within 6 hours, President stood in the Great Hall of the United Earth Government. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair that she kept tied back. She had led humanity through 2 colony wars and a famine that nearly destroyed the outer settlements. She was not easily impressed. But even she felt something cold move through her chest when she saw the aliens. There were 3 of them. The one who spoke called himself Envoy. He explained that he represented something called the Galactic Council, a group of 47 alien species that had ruled this part of the galaxy for 8,000 years. 8,000 years. Humans had only been in space for 300. Doctor stood beside the president. She was the chief translator, a woman who had spent her life studying languages. Now she had to learn a new one in real time. The aliens had given them a device that translated their words, but did not trust it completely. She listened carefully to every sound they made. Admiral Park stood in the corner of the room. He was a large man with a face like carved stone. He had commanded Earth's fleet for 15 years. He had fought pirates, rebels, and rogue colonies. He had never lost a battle. Now he watched the aliens with eyes that gave nothing away. Envoy smiled, at least thought it was a smile, it was hard to tell. "We have watched your species for 200 years, said. "You are. Interesting, you fight each other constantly. You nearly destroyed your own planet, and yet you survived. You spread to the stars. This is rare." President nodded slowly. "Thank you. Because of this, the Council has decided to offer you a great honor." Waved his hand, and a hologram appeared in the air. It showed a document covered in strange symbols. "You may join the Galactic Council as a provisional species." Translated the document quickly. Her face grew pale as she read. "Provisional species," she whispered to the president. "It means we would have limited rights. We would be restricted to 3-star systems. We would have to pay tribute in resources, and," she paused, "and labor." "Labor?" President asked. "Workers. They want us to send workers to their stations and mines." Admiral Park's hands tightened into fists, but he said nothing. President looked at Envoy. Her face showed nothing. "This is your offer." "It is a generous offer," said. "Most species wait 1,000 years before receiving such terms. We are giving you this chance because we see potential in your kind." "And if we refuse?" Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Refuse. No species refuses the Council. You do not understand how the galaxy works, President. There is the Council and there is everyone else. Those who join us prosper, those who do not." He spread his thin hands. "They do not last long." The room was silent. Ambassador stepped forward. She was an older woman who had spent 30 years in diplomacy. She knew how to read people, and she knew how to read situations. Right now, she was reading Envoy like an open book. He expected them to say yes. He expected them to be grateful. He expected them to bow. "We need time to consider," President said. Tilted his head. "Consider? There is nothing to consider. These are the terms. You accept them or you face the consequences." "And what are the consequences?" "That is not something you want to discover." President stood slowly. She was not a tall woman, but in that moment she seemed to fill the entire room. She looked at Envoy with eyes that had seen war, famine, and death. Eyes that had made impossible choices and lived with the results. Envoy, she said, her voice calm and clear, I thank you for coming to Earth. I thank you for explaining the Council's position. But I must tell you something important. She adjusted her collar, a small gesture that somehow carried enormous weight. We did not ask for your offer. We did not ask for your protection. We did not ask for anything. She paused. And we will not accept anything either. Stared at her, his large eyes blinked once, twice. I do not understand. Then let me make it simple. President smiled, but there was no warmth in it. There is nothing to discuss. We are not interested in your counsel. We are not interested in your terms. We are not interested in being a provisional anything. This is unprecedented. No species has ever. Then we will be the first. Admiral Park stepped forward. His voice was deep and steady. You should leave now, Envoy. Your ship is waiting. Looked from the Admiral to the President to the other humans in the room. He saw no fear. He saw no hesitation. He saw only a wall of quiet determination that he could not understand. You are making a terrible mistake, he said. Perhaps, President replied, but it is our mistake to make. The humans turned and walked out of the room, leaving Envoy alone with his guards. For a long moment, he stood in silence, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. In 8,000 years, no species had ever refused the Council's offer. Not once. Every civilization they encountered eventually understood the simple truth: join or die. It was not cruelty. It was just how the galaxy worked. But these humans, they had looked at the most powerful organization in the galaxy and said no. Walked back to his ship. His hands were shaking, though he did not know why. As the ship rose into the sky, he opened a communication channel to the Council station, millions of light years away. High Arbiter, he said, we have a problem. What kind of problem? Paused. In his long career, he had delivered many reports. He had announced wars and treaties, victories and defeats, but he had never delivered news like this. The humans have refused our offer, all of it. They do not want to negotiate, they do not want to discuss, they simply refused. The silence that followed was the longest of life. Return to the station immediately, finally said. We need to discuss this in person. As the ship jumped into hyperspace, looked back at the small blue planet growing smaller in the distance. Such a tiny world, such a young species. They had no idea what they had done. Or perhaps, he thought with a chill, they knew exactly what they had done. And that was what scared him most of all. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest room ever built. It floated in the center of a space station called the Eternal Accord, and it could hold 10,000 beings at once. Today, representatives from all 47 species had gathered for an emergency session. High Arbiter stood at the center of the chamber. He was old, even by the standards of his species. His skin was dark blue, almost black, and his 4 arms were folded across his chest. He had led the Council for 300 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had crushed rebellions and ended wars. He had never seen anything like this. The report is accurate, he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. The humans have refused our offer. They have refused to negotiate. They have refused everything. Murmurs filled the room. Representatives whispered to each other in 100 different languages. Some laughed nervously. Others sat in stunned silence. Delegate Myra of the collective raised her hand. She was small and delicate, with silver skin that shimmered in the light. They were known for their caution. Perhaps there was a translation error, she suggested. The humans are a young species. Maybe they did not understand what they were refusing. There was no error, replied. Envoy was very clear. The humans understood perfectly. They simply did not care. Commander Thresh of the Empire stood up. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with scales that were deep red and eyes that burned like fire. They were warriors. They had conquered dozens of worlds before joining the Council. Then we destroy them, Thresh said simply. One of their outer colonies, we burn it to ash. They will learn quickly what happens to species that defy us. That seems extreme, Delegate Myra said. Extreme, Thresh laughed. It is mercy. A quick lesson is better than a long war. Trust me, I know these things. Elder Pale of the Eye Dominion did not stand. He was too old to stand. His body was ancient and withered, supported by a floating chair that hummed quietly. The Eye were the oldest species in the council. They had been members since the beginning, 8,000 years ago. Before we discuss destruction, Pale said, his voice thin and dry, perhaps we should understand what we are dealing with. He waved a bony hand and a hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a planet, blue and green, covered in clouds. Earth. We have been watching the humans for 200 years, Pale continued. I have reviewed all of our records. They are unusual. Unusual how? Asked. They survive. Pale pulled up more images. Ice covering the planet, great fires, mushroom clouds rising into the sky. They have faced extinction many times, ice ages, diseases, wars that covered their entire world. Each time they should have died. Each time they did not. Many species survive hardship, Thresh said dismissively. No, Pale shook his ancient head. You do not understand. These humans do not just survive, they fight. Against everything, against nature, against each other, against themselves. They are the most violent species we have ever observed. He paused. And yet they are also the most creative, the most adaptive. They change faster than any species in our records. Delegate Myra looked worried. What does this mean for us? It means, Pale said slowly, that we should be careful. Raised his hand for silence. We will not act out of fear. The Council has stood for 8,000 years. We have faced threats far greater than one small species from one small planet. He turned to face the assembly. We will send a second delegation. This time, we will make clear the consequences of refusal. A fleet will accompany our envoy, 200 warships. The humans will see our power and they will understand. The assembly voted. It was not even close. The second delegation would depart immediately. Far away on Earth, Admiral Park sat in a room deep beneath the Himalayan mountains. This was the war room, the most secure location on the planet. The walls were made of solid rock and reinforced steel. No signal could enter or leave without permission. Around him sat the leaders of humanity, President, General, Commander of all ground forces, Ambassador, Doctor, and a dozen others, the best minds humanity had to offer. They will come back, Admiral Park said, probably with ships this time, a show of force. How many ships? President asked. Unknown, but based on what we know about their fleet sizes, at least 100, maybe more. General shook his head. He was a practical man who dealt in numbers. Our entire fleet is maybe 40 combat-ready ships. We cannot fight 100. No, Admiral Park agreed. We cannot. Then what do we do? Ambassador leaned forward. She had spent 15 years studying intercepted communications from the Council. She knew more about them than anyone on Earth. I have been thinking about this, she said. The Council has existed for 8,000 years. In that time, every species they have encountered has done one of two things. They either submitted immediately or they fought and lost. So they have never dealt with a species that does neither, she smiled slightly. They have protocols for submission, they have protocols for war, but they have no protocol for silence. Doctor understood immediately. You want us to ignore them. Exactly. When their fleet arrives, we say nothing. We do nothing. We let them sit in space and wonder what we are thinking. President considered this, and what will that accomplish? Confusion, fear. They will not know if we are planning something. They will not know if we are weak or strong. They will not know anything. And for a species that has controlled the galaxy for 8,000 years, not knowing is terrifying. Admiral Park nodded slowly. I like it, but we should do more than just ignore them. We should let them know we are ignoring them. What do you mean? When their fleet arrives, I will take a single ship and fly directly at them. I will stop just short of their weapons' range, and then I will sit there doing nothing until they lose their minds. General laughed. That is either brilliant or insane. Perhaps both, Park replied. But it will send a message. We are not afraid of them. Their fleet, their weapons, their 8,000 years of power, none of it scares us. President stood up. She looked around the room at the faces of her people. They were not afraid. They were not uncertain. They were ready. We have made our choice, she said. We will not submit. We will not negotiate. We will not beg. If they want to talk to us, they can do so as equals or not at all. And if they attack, someone asked. Then we fight, and we make them pay for every inch they take. The room was silent for a moment. Then, one by one, the leaders of humanity nodded. 3 weeks later, the Council fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system. 200 warships, each one massive and powerful, enough firepower to destroy a dozen worlds. Envoy broadcast his message across all frequencies. People of Earth, the Galactic Council demands your immediate response. You will accept our terms or face annihilation. You have 1 hour to reply. Earth did not reply. 1 hour passed, then 2, then 12, sent more messages, threats, warnings, promises of destruction. Silence. For 3 days the humans said nothing. The Council fleet waited, growing more confused and angry with each passing hour. Commanders argued among themselves. Some wanted to attack immediately. Others wanted to wait. No one knew what to do. On the 4th day, a single human ship appeared. It was small, barely armed, hardly worth noticing. It flew directly at the fleet and stopped exactly 1 kilometer from the flagship. Admiral Park sat in the captain's chair. He looked at the massive warships surrounding him. He looked at the weapons pointed at his tiny vessel, and he smiled. For 6 hours he sat there doing nothing. Then, without a word, he turned his ship around and flew back to Earth. The Council fleet remained at the edge of the solar system, paralyzed by uncertainty. Elder Pale, watching from thousands of light years away, felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. The Council fleet had been waiting at the edge of the solar system for 2 weeks. 200 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy, commanded by the most experienced officers, armed with weapons that could crack planets open like eggs. And they were doing nothing. Commander Thresh stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the distant blue dot that was Earth. His claws dug into the metal railing hard enough to leave marks. "This is madness," he growled. "We should have destroyed them days ago." Envoy stood nearby, looking tired and confused. "The High Arbiter has not given the order. We are supposed to wait for their response." "They are not going to respond. Do you not see that? They are laughing at us." "Perhaps," said quietly. "But what kind of species laughs at 200 warships?" Thresh had no answer for that. Back on Earth, Doctor sat in her office, surrounded by screens showing alien communications. She had been monitoring the Council's transmissions since the fleet arrived. What she saw made her smile. "They are arguing," she reported to Admiral Park. "The commanders cannot agree on what to do. Some want to attack, some want to withdraw, some think we are planning a trap." "A trap," Park laughed, "with 40 ships against 200. They do not know that. They cannot scan our planet effectively. Our defenses are jamming their sensors," shook her head in wonder. "They think we might be hiding something, a secret weapon, a massive fleet, something." "We are hiding something," Park said. "We are hiding the fact that we have nothing to hide, and that is driving them insane." Ambassador entered the room. She had been working without sleep for days, coordinating Earth's response to the crisis. Despite her exhaustion, her eyes were bright. "I just received word from the president," she said. The silent strategy is working better than we hoped. The Council's unity is starting to crack. What do you mean? 3 species have sent private messages to our government. The and the Oshi. They are asking questions, quiet questions. They want to know if we would be interested in alternative arrangements. Admiral Park leaned forward. They want to leave the Council. Not yet, but they are thinking about it. For the first time in centuries, they are wondering if the Council is as powerful as they believed. This was unexpected. This was wonderful. Meanwhile, on the Council station, High Arbiter faced a crisis he had never imagined. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Other species were watching what was happening at Earth. They were watching the mighty Council fleet sit in space, doing nothing, while a single human ship flew circles around them. "This cannot continue," said to his advisors. "We look weak, we look foolish." Delegate Myra wrung her hands nervously. "What can we do? If we attack without a declaration of war, other species will question our legitimacy. If we withdraw, we admit defeat. We are trapped." "There must be a way," insisted. "There is always a way." Elder Pale's voice came through a holographic communicator. He was too frail to attend in person, but his mind was still sharp. "There is no way," the old eye said. "Not the way you are thinking. The humans have not broken any of our laws. They have not attacked us. They have not threatened us. They have simply refused to obey." "That is enough," snapped. "Disobedience is a crime." "Is it? Show me the law that says a species must accept our offers. Show me the rule that says they must negotiate." Pale paused. "You cannot, because those laws do not exist. We never needed them. Every species in history was too afraid to say no." "Then what do you suggest?" "I suggest you consider the possibility that the universe has changed, that the Council's way of doing things may no longer work." Pale's image flickered. "These humans are not like us. They do not think like us. They do not fear like us. You cannot defeat an enemy you do not understand." Dismiss the communication with an angry wave. Pale has grown too old. He sees shadows everywhere. But Delegate Myra noticed that his hands were shaking. Back in Earth's war room, Captain Ryu presented his latest report. He was a young officer, known for his creative thinking and his complete lack of respect for traditional military doctrine. "I have been studying their fleet formations," he said, pointing to a holographic display. "They follow the same patterns every time. Their ships always maintain exact distances from each other. Their weapons always point in specific directions. Everything is precise. Everything is predictable." "They have been fighting wars for 8,000 years, General observed. "They have had time to perfect their tactics." "Exactly," smiled. "They have perfected their tactics, and that is their weakness." "Explain." "When you do something the same way for 8,000 years, you stop thinking about it. It becomes automatic. You cannot imagine doing it differently." He changed the display, showing human ships moving in chaotic patterns. "We have been fighting for 300 years. We have tried everything. We have failed at everything, and we have learned from every failure." Admiral Park understood. "We can adapt, they cannot. More than that, we can surprise them. They have never fought an enemy who does not follow rules. They have never faced chaos." President entered the room. She had been listening from the doorway. "Captain Ryu, are you suggesting we can actually defeat them in battle?" Hesitated. "Not defeat exactly. Not with our current numbers, but we can hurt them. We can make them pay a price so high that they will think twice about attacking us." "How?" "By not fighting fair. By using tactics they have never seen. By making them afraid of what we might do next." The room fell silent as everyone considered this. Ambassador spoke first. "This matches what I have learned about the Council. They value order above everything, predictability, control. If we show them that we cannot be controlled, that we cannot be predicted, it will terrify them more than any weapon." Doctor added, "There is something else. In their communications, I have found references to a species called the... They lived millions of years ago. The records say they were similar to humans, aggressive, unpredictable, and willing to take insane risks. What happened to them? President asked. His expression darkened. They started a war against the Council, a war that lasted a century. They nearly won, but in the end they destroyed themselves. The Council did not defeat them. They simply refused to surrender, even when they had no hope of victory. They fought until there was no one left to fight. The room was very quiet. Admiral Park broke the silence. They destroyed themselves because they could not stop fighting, but we are not the... We know when to fight and when to wait. We know when to be loud and when to be silent. He stood up and faced the assembled leaders of humanity. The Council thinks they understand us. They think we are just another aggressive species that will burn itself out. They are wrong. We will not give them the war they expect. We will not give them the submission they want. We will give them something they have never faced before. And what is that? President asked. Admiral Park smiled grimly. Uncertainty. We will make them question everything, every decision, every assumption, every belief they have held for 8,000 years. And when they finally break, when they finally cannot take the uncertainty anymore, they will do one of two things. They will either destroy us completely or they will accept us as equals. Those are not good options, General said quietly. No, but they are the only options we have. President nodded slowly. Then we continue as planned, silence, patience. Let them wait, let them wonder, let them fear. She looked out the window at the night sky, where somewhere, far away, 200 enemy warships waited for an answer that would never come. We are not in a hurry, she said. We have been fighting for survival since we crawled out of the mud. A few more months, a few more years, it makes no difference to us. But to them, she smiled, time is not their friend anymore. 6 months had passed since the Council fleet arrived at Earth. 6 months of waiting, 6 months of silence, and now everything was about to change. The Council had grown impatient. High Arbiter, pressured by the and other aggressive species, had finally authorized military action. Not a full invasion, not yet, but a limited demonstration of power. They chose the human mining colony on 7, a small settlement of 3,000 people on a cold, rocky world. It was far from Earth, poorly defended and insignificant. The perfect target to teach humanity a lesson. Commander Thresh led the strike force himself. 40 warships, each one armed with enough weapons to level a city. He expected the mission to take less than an hour. Admiral Park had been waiting for this moment. They are moving, Captain Ryu reported from the bridge of the flagship Defiance. 40 ships heading towards 7. Park nodded. He had positioned his fleet weeks ago, hidden in the asteroid belt between 2 nearby systems. 12 ships against 40, not good odds by any calculation. But Park was not planning to fight fairly. Send word to 7, he ordered. Begin evacuation immediately. I want every civilian off that planet within 2 hours. Sir, there is not enough time. They will arrive in 3 hours. Then we need to slow them down. The evacuation began. Transport ships launched from the colony, carrying families, workers, children. They flew toward hidden safe points that Park had established months ago, places the Council did not know about. Meanwhile, Ryu prepared the defense fleet. Remember, he told his captains, we are not here to win. We are here to make them bleed. Every ship we destroy is a message. Every minute we survive is a victory. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace above 7. Commander Thresh stood on his bridge, watching the small human ships moving below. This is pathetic, he said. They have sent 12 ships to face 40. Do they not know mathematics? His tactical officer looked confused. Sir, our sensors are having trouble. There is some kind of interference. Interference? Yes, we cannot get accurate readings on the human ships, or the planet, or, He paused, checking his instruments. Or anything, really. Thresh growled. It does not matter, we have 40 ships. They have 12. This is not a battle, this is an execution. He gave the order to attack. What happened next would be studied by military historians for centuries. The human ships did not form defensive lines. They did not try to protect the planet. Instead, they scattered in all directions, moving in patterns that seemed completely random. Some flew directly at the ships. Others circled around, appearing and disappearing from sensors. "What are they doing?" Thresh demanded. "This makes no sense." Before anyone could answer, the first ship exploded. It was not a human weapon that destroyed it. It was a drone, a tiny, unmanned craft that had been hiding in the debris field around the planet. The drone flew directly into the ship's engine and detonated. More explosions followed. Drones appeared from everywhere, launched from the human ships, from hidden platforms on asteroids, from places they had not thought to check. They were small and fast and impossible to track. "Shoot them down," Thresh screamed. But the weapons were designed to fight large warships, not swarms of tiny drones. They could not adjust fast enough. Captain Ryu flew his ship directly at the flagship. His crew thought he was insane. He probably was, but he had calculated the approach perfectly. At the last moment, he cut his engines and released an electromagnetic pulse, a burst of energy that scrambled electronics within a wide radius. His own ship went dark for 30 seconds. So did the flagship. And in those 30 seconds, 3 human ships fired everything they had at the enemy vessel. The flagship did not explode, but it lost shields, weapons, and half its propulsion. Commander Thresh found himself drifting helplessly in space, while human ships flew past him like angry insects. The battle lasted 2 hours. When it was over, 28 ships had been destroyed. 4 more had been captured. Their crews had surrendered when they realized their ships were disabled and drifting toward the planet's atmosphere. Human losses: 2 ships, 143 crew members. Every civilian on 7 had been evacuated safely. The surviving commander sent a final transmission before his ship's reactor went critical. They do not fight like civilized beings. They fight like they have nothing to lose. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light. The mighty, who had conquered dozens of worlds, had been humiliated by a species that had only been in space for 300 years. On Earth, President addressed the United Assembly. Her speech was broadcast on all frequencies, and she knew the Council was listening. She did not celebrate the victory. She did not threaten further attacks. She simply spoke the truth. "We asked for nothing," she said, her voice calm and steady. "We will accept nothing. We did not want this fight. We do not want war, but if war comes to us, we will not run from it." She paused, looking directly at the camera. The Council believes that power comes from fear. They believe that species submit because they are afraid of being destroyed. Perhaps that is true for some, but not for us. She leaned forward slightly. "We have destroyed ourselves before. Ice ages, plagues, wars that burned our world. We have faced extinction and survived. We know what it means to lose everything and start again. So when you threaten to destroy us, you should understand something important." Her eyes were hard as stone. "We are not afraid of destruction. We are afraid of submission. We are afraid of losing who we are. And we will burn the entire galaxy down before we let you take that from us." She stood up. "We remember what we are, do you?" The transmission ended. In the council chambers, High Arbiter watched the recording in silence. Around him, representatives of 47 species sat in stunned horror. Delegate Myra spoke first. "She is insane. They are all insane." "No," Elder Pale said quietly. "They are not insane. They are simply different. They value things we do not understand." Commander Thresh's hologram appeared, transmitted from his damaged flagship. His face was burned, and one of his arms hung uselessly at his side. "Give me more ships," he demanded. "I will crush them. I will turn their planet to glass." "And what then?" asked. "You destroy Earth. You kill billions. And then every species in the galaxy sees that the Council must commit genocide to defeat one small species. How long before others start to wonder if they could do the same?" Thresh had no answer. Turned to face the assembly. For the first time in 300 years he looked old. He looked tired. He looked afraid. "We have made a mistake," he admitted. "I do not know how to fix it, but I know this. The humans are not going to surrender. They are not going to negotiate. And every time we attack them, we look weaker." "Then what do?" someone asked. Did not answer, because for the first time in his long life he did not know. General began full mobilization of Earth's forces that same day. Factories that had been building civilian goods switched to military production. Citizens who had never held weapons began training. Every colony, every station, every human settlement in the galaxy prepared for war. But Admiral Park knew that preparation was not enough. They needed allies. They needed cracks in the Council's unity, and thanks to Ambassador they had both. "The and Oshi have agreed to secret talks," reported. "They are terrified of the Council's response, but they are even more terrified of what happens if the Council falls." "Falls?" Park raised an eyebrow. "That is a strong word." "It is the word they used," smiled. "They have been watching us carefully. They see something in humanity that they have not seen in 8,000 years. "What?" "Hope." 1 year had passed since the Battle of Seven. 1 year of scattered fighting, political chaos, and slow collapse. The galaxy had changed in ways no one had expected. The Galactic Council was breaking apart. It started small. The and Oshi formally from the Council and signed a mutual defense agreement with Earth. It was the first time in 8,000 years that any species had left the Council voluntarily. Then the followed, and the, one by one, species that had been quiet members for centuries suddenly found their voices. They looked at humanity and saw something they had forgotten was possible: freedom. High Arbiter watched his empire crumble. 7 species have left, Delegate Myra reported during an emergency session. 14 more are considering it. Our trade networks are collapsing. Our military is spread too thin trying to maintain order. Commander Thresh slammed his fist on the table. "Then we crush them. We crush the deserters. We crush the humans. We show the galaxy that there is a price for disobedience." "With what forces?" asked wearily. "We are already fighting insurgencies on 12 worlds. Species that were loyal for thousands of years are now questioning everything. If we commit more ships to attacking Earth, we leave ourselves vulnerable everywhere else." "Then we are defeated?" Myra asked, her voice small. "Not yet," stood up, "but we are losing, and I do not know how to stop it." Elder Pale had been silent through the entire meeting. Now he spoke. "I wish to visit Earth." Everyone stared at him, even looked surprised. "Visit Earth, why?" "Because I am old and I am tired and I want to understand." Pale's ancient eyes seemed to look at something far away. "I have lived for 3,000 years. I have seen civilizations rise and fall, but I have never seen anything like this. I want to meet these humans face to face. I want to ask them the question that has been burning in my mind since this all began." "What question? What do they want?" Pale traveled to Earth in a small ship, alone except for a few attendants. It was unofficial. The Council had not authorized it and pretended not to notice. If the old eye wanted to risk his life meeting the enemy, that was his choice. Doctor met him at the landing site. She had studied his species for years, but seeing one in person was different. Pale was fragile and ancient, his body held together by technology and stubborn will, but his eyes were sharp. "You are the translator," he said, "the one who understands languages." "I try," replied. Some things are harder to translate than words. Pale made a sound that might have been a laugh. Yes, that is why I am here. They walked through a garden in Seoul. Cherry blossoms were falling, covering the ground in pink and white. Pale moved slowly, his hovering chair following the path while walked beside him. "It is beautiful," Pale said, "your world." "Thank you. We have watched you for 200 years. We saw you fight your wars. We saw you poison your air and water. We thought you were like the violent, self-destructive, doomed." He paused. "We were wrong. The destroyed themselves said. We almost did too, but we learned." "Learned what?" "That survival is not enough. That we have to be worthy of survival." She looked at the falling blossoms. "We still make mistakes. We still fight, but we try to be better than we were yesterday." Pale was silent for a long moment. Then he asked the question he had come so far to ask. "What do humans want? Really want? Not territory, not resources, not power. What drives you?" Thought carefully. This was not a simple question, and she knew that her answer would matter. "We want to be free," she said finally. "To make our own choices, to succeed or fail on our own terms, to never bow to anyone. Even if it destroys you." Yes, there was no hesitation in her voice. "We would rather die free than live as slaves. That is not logic, that is not strategy, it is simply who we are." Pale closed his eyes. "The Council cannot give you that. You understand this, yes. If we allow one species to refuse us, others will follow. The entire system we have built will collapse." Smiled sadly. Then the system was already broken. It only worked because no one was brave enough to push back. We pushed and everything shattered. She shrugged. "Maybe that means it needed to shatter. You would destroy 8,000 years of order." "We did not destroy anything. We just refused to participate. The rest happened on its own." Pale opened his eyes. For a moment saw something in them, respect perhaps or understanding. "I am going to return to the Council," he said. "I am going to recommend unconditional withdrawal from human space and recognition of your species as a sovereign power." Held her breath. "You think they will agree?" "No," Pale's voice was heavy. "They will refuse. They will call me a traitor. Commander Thresh will probably demand my arrest." He paused. "But the recommendation will be recorded. The words will exist. And when the Council finally collapses, because it will collapse one way or another, there will be a record showing that at least one voice spoke for peace." That seems like a lot of effort for something that will fail. Perhaps. The old eye smiled, and for a moment he did not look ancient at all. "But sometimes the most important thing is not whether you succeed. It is whether you try. Your species taught me that." Pale returned to the Council and made his recommendation exactly as he had promised. The vote was overwhelming, 41 against, 3 in favor, 3 abstaining. Commander Thresh called for Pale's execution. Still clinging to some sense of decency, refused. But Admiral Park had intercepted the entire deliberation. He had listened to every argument, every vote, every whispered conversation, and he had learned something crucial. The Council was divided. The hawks like Thresh wanted war. The moderates like Myra wanted peace but were too afraid to act. And a small group, led by Pale, believed that the only way forward was to accept humanity as equals. The Council was no longer a unified enemy. It was a collection of factions, each pulling in different directions. Park called a meeting with his senior officers. "The time has come," he said. "We have been patient, we have been quiet, we have let them weaken themselves, but now we need to end this." Captain Ryu leaned forward. "What do you have in mind?" "We have been building ships in secret for the past year. 200 vessels, hidden in asteroid bases and deep space stations. The Council does not know they exist." General whistled. 200, how did you hide that?" "By being careful, by being patient, by doing things the Council never expected." Park activated a holographic display. showing the location of the Council Station Eternal Accord. We are going to take the fleet directly to their doorstep, not to attack, not to threaten, just to show them what we are capable of. Ambassador understood immediately. You want to scare them into surrendering. I want to show them that the war they are planning cannot be won. Not by them, not by us, but if they force us to fight, we will take them down with us. Park's voice was hard. They destroyed themselves rather than surrender. We will do the same if we must. But I am betting that the Council is not willing to die just to beat us. And if you are wrong, Park smiled grimly, then we find out how brave humans really are. The first fleet departed the next morning. 200 ships, carrying the hope and fear of all humanity, jumping into hyperspace toward the heart of enemy territory. President watched them go from a viewing platform on the moon. Ambassador stood beside her. "Do you think they will succeed?" asked. "I do not know," admitted. "But I know this. Whatever happens next will decide the future of our species. Either we emerge as equals or we do not emerge at all." She looked at the stars, where somewhere far away, her people were flying toward an uncertain fate. "We have done everything we can. The rest is up to them,"